Welcome, weary travelers of the night, to another episode of Boring History for Sleep. Tonight, we're plunging into the murky, flea-ridden depths of medieval Europe, a world so harsh, so steeped in discomfort, that your modern conveniences will feel like miracles by the end. We'll also wander through the opulent yet treacherous courts of Catherine the Great's Russia and the enigmatic jungles of Palenque, where the Red Queen's tomb whispers secrets from a lost Maya world. This is a long, winding journey designed to lull you into a deep, restful slumber with the monotonous drone of history's less glamorous details. So, dim the lights, adjust your pillow, and maybe turn on a fan for that soft, comforting hum. Leave a comment about where you're tuning in from and what time it is. I love knowing who's joining us from across the globe. Now, let's begin our slow, soothing descent into the past. Picture this. It's the year 1325, and you've just woken up in medieval Europe. The first thing you notice is the smell, a pungent blend of damp straw, unwashed bodies, and something faintly resembling a barnyard after a rainstorm. Your bed, if you can call it that, is a sack stuffed with straw and hay, crawling with fleas and lice that have made themselves at home. This isn't a mattress, it's a living ecosystem, and you're an unwilling guest. Straw is half-rotted, clumped together with mysterious stains, and smells like it was recently liberated from a stable. There's no memory foam, no fluffy pillows, just a coarse wool blanket, heavy with months of accumulated grime, weighing you down like a medieval punishment device. The church bell clangs in the distance, a relentless, metallic reminder that your day has begun. It's not a gentle alarm clock with a snooze button, it's a demand, louder and less forgiving than a rooster with a grudge. Live in a single-room wooden hut, its walls patched with mud and straw, offering little protection from the elements. There are no windows, just a hole in the thatched roof where smoke from the fire escapes, assuming the wind cooperates. Inside, you share this cramped space with your entire family, parents, siblings, maybe a random cousin who never left, plus a couple of goats, a chicken that wandered in, and an army of insects that have claimed permanent residency. Air is thick with the scent of stale ale, human sweat, and something you desperately hope isn't mold, but deep down, no probably is. You're 22 years old, which in medieval terms makes you practically middle-aged. Your joints creak like an old wooden gate, your back protests with every movement, and your knees sound like a sack of gravel being shaken. Getting out of bed is a gamble. The dirt floor is either slick with last night's rain, which seeped through the leaky roof, or crusted with whatever the animals left behind. Your bare feet, now part of the floor's ecosystem, make contact with something cold and squishy, and you decide it's better not to investigate. Privacy, a foreign concept. Your family is waking up around you, coughing, scratching, and muttering. There's no bedroom door, no curtains, just communal everything. You're never alone, not because of companionship, but because of parasites, rodents, and the 8 other people sharing your 10-foot square world. Nature calls, and it's not a polite request, it's a screaming demand. You stumble outside, hopping for relief, but there's no bathroom as you know it. No porcelain throne, no flush valve, not even a mildly resentful plunger in the corner. If you're a peasant, your toilet is a wooden bucket behind the hut, already brimming because Uncle Wolfston overdid it with the turnips last night. The smell is apocalyptic, a biblical assault on your senses. You hold your breath, do your business, and then hear the kicker toss the contents into the street below. You're supposed to shout Gardelou, Old French for watch out below, but nobody moves fast enough, and the cobblestones become a medieval river of human waste, animal droppings, and unidentifiable sludge. If you're lucky enough to live in a town with public latrines, don't get too excited. These are wooden benches with holes, lined up in rows, where you sit shoulder to shoulder with strangers, making awkward small talk while trying not to breathe too deeply. Ventilation is a cruel joke, and privacy is a myth. Toilet paper, not invented yet. You're wiping with straw, leaves, moss, or if you're feeling indulgent, a scrap of wool. Sometimes you just make do with nothing at all, which might explain why handshakes haven't caught on. If you're in a castle, you might have a guard robe, a stone chute that drops waste directly into the moat below. Sounds fancy, right? Wrong. Enemies sometimes climbed up those chutes to infiltrate the castle, making your bathroom a literal security risk. Whether you're a peasant or a noble, toileting is cold, public, and deeply humiliating. One slip on a wet stone path, and you're face first in humanity's leftovers. And you still haven't brushed your teeth. Spoiler, you're not going to. You've survived the morning so far, but you're starving. Don't expect a warm croissant, a frothy latte, or even a sad piece of toast. Breakfast in 1325 is a grim affair, served in a wooden bowl that looks like it's been through a war. Your meal is pottage, a thick, gloopy stew made from whatever's lying around, grains, turnips, maybe some wilted cabbage, or a suspicious onion. It's been simmering in the same pot for days, possibly weeks, with new scraps tossed in like a culinary landfill. The texture is somewhere between porridge and despair, and the taste is a reminder that flavor is a luxury you can't afford. On the side, you get a hunk of bread so hard it could double as a doorstop. Made from coarse rye or barley flour, wheat is for lords. It's often bulked up with sawdust, ground acorns, or even clay to stretch the supply. You don't slice it, you negotiate with it, hopping not to chip a tooth. For a drink, you're chugging weak ale, yes. At 6 a.m. water is a death trap, teeming with parasites and filth. So everyone, including children, drinks small beer to stay alive. It's low in alcohol, but high in survivability. Meat, maybe on a saint's feast day, if the Lord is feeling generous. Fresh fruit, only in season, and it's usually half rotten by the time you get it. Spices like pepper or salt are locked away like medieval Bitcoin, worth more than your monthly wages. Your meal is gritty, bland, and slightly suspicious, like it's plotting against you. You eat because you have to, not because it's enjoyable. Breakfast doesn't energize you, it just happens to you. Now it's time to get dressed, which sounds simple, but is anything. Your wardrobe consists of one outfit, a scratchy wool tunic or linen shift you've worn for months, maybe years. It's stained with sweat, dirt, and the occasional splash of pottage, and it smells like a compost pile left to marinate in a pigsty. Underwear, optional, and if you have it, it's just another layer of itch, a linen undertunic that's seen better days. Washing clothes is a rare event. You'd need to haul water from a river, heat it over a fire, scrub with ashes or lye, and hope for a sunny day to dry it, which happens roughly 3 times a year. Shoes, if you have them, are flimsy leather with no arch support, more like socks with ambition. Most peasants go barefoot, trudging through mud, dung, and sharp rocks that feel like medieval landmines. Your skin is a battlefield. Fleas, lice, and bedbugs live rent-free in your clothes and hair. Everyone scratches constantly, nobles, peasants, even the priest, who might be using a wooden spoon to itch his armpit during a sermon. A rash isn't a medical issue. It's just your new personality trait, a constant companion for the next 6 months. There's no dermatologist, no hydrocortisone, just you and your itchy wool prison, ready to face the day. You're dressed in misery, wrapped in discomfort, and already dreading what comes next. If you're a peasant and 90% of people are your job is simple, don't die while laboring for someone else's comfort. You work the Lord's land from sunrise to sunset, wielding a wooden hoe, a rusty sickle, or just your blistered hands. You plow fields, sow seeds, pull weeds, and haul water until your spine begins to resemble a question mark. There's no weekend, no sick days, no coffee breaks. Sunday is technically a day off, but only if you're not harvesting, fighting off raiders, or praying desperately for your infected toe to stop turning black. If you're a woman, your workload doubles. You're not just in the fields, you're also cooking, cleaning, spinning wool, and raising children who start working at age 5 with tiny rakes and big dreams of not dying of the flu. If you're not a farmer, maybe you're a blacksmith, tanner, or cooper, working with fire, chemicals, or animal guts in a poorly ventilated shed. The pay, survival if you're lucky. The perks, blisters, exhaustion, and the constant threat of starvation. If you stop working, you don't eat. If you don't eat, you're replaced. Medieval life isn't a career, it's a survival marathon, and you're already behind. Weather in medieval Europe isn't just a backdrop, it's a punishment. Winter turns your hut into a freezer. The walls have gaps you could throw a chicken through, and the fire in the hearth is weak because firewood is scarce and sometimes illegal to gather. Stealing wood from the Lord's forest could get you fined or worse. Your one tunic doesn't cut it, and your fingers and toes are so cold they feel like tiny medieval popsicles. Frostbite isn't diagnosed, it's just bad luck. Summer is no better. Your hut becomes a clay oven, with no fans, no cross breeze, and no deodorant. You sweat through layers you can't remove without scandalizing the neighbors. Flies swarm, attracted to your unwashed body, and the week-old goat stew fermenting in the corner. Mosquitoes buzz in your ears all night, assuming you can sleep through the sound of crying bobbies and arguing neighbors. In the fields, the sun bakes you with no sunscreen or hat, just a straw creation that makes you look like a desperate scarecrow. Heat stroke is called taking a bad turn. No matter the season, your clothes itch, your food is terrible, and work never stops. Medieval climate control. It's called suffering. Thirsty, don't trust the stream. It looks clear and inviting, but upstream, someone's dumping a chamber pot or a dead pig is decomposing. Parasites and bacteria lurk in every sip, ready to send you to an early grave. That's why you're drinking weak ale for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Even children do. Brewing boils the water, making it safer than the town ditch. Wine is an option for the rich, but it's not exactly a morning pick-me-up. Bathing, risky business. Many believed it opened your pores to disease, so most avoided it, wearing their filth like a protective shield. Communal bathhouses existed, but were often shut down by the church for being dens of gossip and sin. If you do bathe, it's a production. Haul water, heat it, fill a leaky tub, and pray nobody else uses it first. Rainwater, collected in barrels, is a breeding ground for mosquitoes and mold. Water in the Middle Ages isn't refreshing, it's a gamble. Whether you're drinking it, bathing in it, or using it to water crops. One wrong gulp, and you're sweating out your final days on a straw bed, regretting every life choice. Feeling sick? Good luck. Medieval medicine is less about healing and more about surviving the treatment. Everything wrong with you, cough, rash, broken bone, is blamed on an imbalance of the 4 humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Got a fever? Too much blood. The cure: bloodletting with a dull blade or hungry leeches, often performed by the same barber who cuts your hair. Toothache: that that same barber surgeon yanks it out with pliers. No anesthesia, by candlelight. Infections are a death sentence, no antibiotics, no germ theory. Doctors think illness comes from bad air or God's wrath over your sinful thoughts. Treatments include crushed beetles, herbal purges, or just praying harder. If you break a bone, there's no anesthesia, just pain and a knife that hasn't been cleaned since the last crusade. If your condition worsens, you get more leeches, a priest muttering last rites, and a one-way ticket to the churchyard. Surviving a visit to the doctor is a miracle. You're better off drinking warm beer and hopping for divine intervention. Evening, you're starving again. But dinner isn't a reward, it's a challenge. Meat, if you have it, is half-rotted, covered in flies, and marinated in questionable brine. Bread might be laced with ergot, a fungus that causes convulsions, hallucinations, or death, a medieval surprise in every bite. Vegetables. Turnips, always turnips, boiled into submission, or floating in pottage. That eternal stew that's been simmering since your grandfather's funeral. Milk spoils in hours. Cheese is a bacterial lottery. And spices like pepper or cinnamon are worth more than gold. Flavor comes from onions, salt if you're lucky, and pain. Poaching a rabbit could get you hanged, as game belongs to the Lord. So you sit by flickering firelight, eating your gray stew, hoping it doesn't kill you. Every bite is a risk, a test of endurance. In the Middle Ages, food doesn't nourish, it challenges you to survive another day. The church isn't just part of life, it is life. Bells dictate when you pray, work, and sleep, ringing at dawn, noon, and night. Missing Mass is a sin. Eating meat on Friday is a sin. Thinking impure thoughts is a double sin. Hell is vividly real, described by priests in excruciating detail. Rivers of fire, demons with pitchforks, eternal torment. You can't read the Bible, it's in Latin, a language for monks and nobles, so you rely on the priest, who might blame your crop failure on insufficient tithing. Tithes, a tenth of everything you own, are mandatory. Grow wheat, give wheat, raise chickens, hand over eggs, have nothing. You're spiritually and financially doomed. Holidays are holy days, filled with fasting, confession, and reminders that joy is a dangerous indulgence. Question the church. Heretics are burned, witches drowned, blasphemers flogged. So you kneel, chant, and pray your soul lands in paradise, assuming the priest likes you. God may be merciful, but the church is not. If you're a woman, life is medieval Europe on expert difficulty. You marry young, often at 12, to a man chosen for land or alliances, not love. Your job, produce heirs, cook, clean, spin wool, and work the fields, all while dodging accusations of witchcraft. Childbirth is a death lottery, no prenatal care, no sterile tools, just a midwife and prayers. Many women die young, and survivors face more pregnancies, each riskier than the last. Unmarried, suspicious, outspoken, dangerous. Strong personality or herbal knowledge could get you labeled a witch and drowned or burned. In the church, your role is limited. Nuns live under strict rules, no speaking, no freedom. Society expects you to endure, obey, and suffer gracefully, smiling through the lice, famine, and fear. Women face all the hardships of men, plus extra layers of expectation and danger. It's not just a game, it's a gauntlet. Violence isn't an exception in the Middle Ages, it's the rule. Steal bread, lose a hand, gossip too much, wear a scold's bridle, a metal mask with a bar in your mouth. Serious crimes like heresy or theft mean torture or execution, performed in front of cheering crowds with snacks. Trial by ordeal decides your fate. Stick your hand in boiling water to retrieve a stone, and if it heals cleanly in 3 days, you're innocent. Sink in a river, innocent, but probably drowned. Float, guilty and punished anyway. It's a game show where the prize is survival, and the host hates you. Domestic violence is normal. Husbands are expected to discipline wives and children. Street fights erupt over nothing, and war is constant. Local feuds, crusades, or disputes over a pig. Justice is performance art, not protection. Life is fragile, and your neighbor might bash your head in over a stray goat. Walk carefully, and don't trust anyone with a club. If you're over 40, you're a legend. Most don't make it that far. Infant mortality is brutal. Half of kids die before 5 from disease, malnutrition, or a bad winter. Childbirth kills women, infections kill men, and the plague turns cities into cemeteries overnight. Famine can wipe out villages, and bad luck, like eating spoiled grain, can send you hallucinating to your grave. No vaccines, no antibiotics, just shallow graves and quick prayers. Life expectancy hovers around 30, and every day is a gamble. Death isn't an event, it's a roommate who never leaves. Let's shift to 18th century Russia, where a young German girl named Sophie Augusta became Catherine the Great. Born in 1729 in a minor Prussian duchy, Sophie was sharp, ambitious, and destined for greatness. Her mother, Johanna, was a cold social climber. Her father, a Prussian officer, was distant, but taught her discipline. Sophie read voraciously, spoke multiple languages, and learned to read a room before speaking, a skill that would serve her well. At 14, she was summoned to Russia to marry Grand Duke Peter, heir to the throne. Arriving in St. Petersburg in 1744, she traded her Lutheran faith for orthodoxy, becoming Ekaterina Alexievna. The Russian court was a viper's nest of intrigue, but Catherine learned fast. She charmed nobles, studied Russian culture, and read Enlightenment thinkers like Voltaire and Montesquieu. Her husband, Peter, was a disaster immature, obsessed with toy soldiers, and openly anti-Russian. When he became Tsar Peter III in 1762, his erratic decisions, alienating the church, nobility, and army, turned everyone against him. Catherine saw her chance. With military support and her lover Gregory Orlov, she staged a bloodless coup, declared herself Empress Catherine II, and locked Peter away. He died soon after, officially of hemorrhoidal colic, but whispers of murder lingered. At 33, a foreign woman with no claim to the throne, Catherine ruled Russia through sheer will and cunning. Catherine wasn't content to merely rule. She wanted to transform Russia into a modern empire. Inspired by the Enlightenment, she corresponded with Voltaire, built schools, and promoted smallpox inoculation, even taking the vaccine herself. Her 1767 legislative commission aimed to rewrite Russia's legal code, with her nakas advocating equality before the law and decrying torture. But feudal realities limited her reforms. She kept the nobility loyal by reinforcing serfdom. Militarily, Catherine was relentless. She waged wars against the Ottoman Empire, securing Crimea and Black Sea ports. She also partitioned Poland, erasing it from the map and expanding Russia's borders. New cities, trade routes, and settlers strengthened her empire. Critics called her imperialistic, but she saw it as destiny. Russia wasn't just a player, it was a powerhouse. Catherine's personal life was as bold as her politics. She took lovers, often younger, always strategic, rewarding loyalty with titles and estates. Her relationship with Gregory Potemkin was both romantic and political, possibly a secret marriage. Gossip painted her as scandalous, but she separated love from governance, a feat few male rulers managed. The Pugachev Rebellion of 1773, led by a man claiming to be Peter III, shook her, but she crushed it ruthlessly, prioritizing stability over reform. When she died in 1796, she left a wealthier, larger Russia and a legacy as a visionary who defied expectations. In the Chiapas jungle, the Maya city of Palenque hides a mystery, the Red Queen. In 1994, archaeologists found a sealed tomb in Temple XIII, untouched for over 1,300 years. Inside was a woman's skeleton, covered in red cinnabar, a sacred, toxic powder symbolizing blood and rebirth. She wore a jade mask, necklaces, and bone needles, signs of royalty. No name was inscribed, earning her the title Red Queen. Was she Zak Kuk, Palenque's Queen Regent, or Tiziakbu Adjo, wife of Pakal the Great? Her tomb's proximity to Pakal's suggests a connection, but DNA tests are inconclusive. Cinnabar, jaguar pelts, and jade marked her as divine, her burial a ritual for the afterlife. Maya women were powerful rulers, priestesses, diplomats. The Red Queen, nameless but revered, reminds us their influence wasn't silent. Her tomb wasn't just a grave, it was a gateway to the Maya afterlife, Xibalba. Her body, drenched in cinnabar, was prepared for a cosmic journey. Jade necklaces and a mosaic mask marked her as elite, while bone needles and obsidian blades hinted at ritual roles. Her sarcophagus, aligned east-west, mirrored the sun's path, a symbol of life and death. Maya temples were cosmological tools, and her burial was a shrine, not a resting place. She wasn't buried to be forgotten. She was meant to ascend. The Middle Ages weren't the fairy tale world of knights and castles. Life was brutal, filthy, and deeply unfair. Born poor, you stayed poor. Born noble, you still faced disease and betrayal. Castles were cold, drafty, and flea-infested. Every task, eating, sleeping, surviving, was a struggle. Yet people found joy singing, storytelling, loving, because humans are stubborn. From medieval Europe's muddy streets to Catherine's glittering courts, and the Red Queen's silent tomb, history is a tapestry of struggle and resilience. These stories remind us of human endurance, of lives lived against the odds. As you close your eyes, let the weight of centuries lull you to sleep. Good night, and may your dreams be softer than a medieval mattress. Let's linger a bit longer in the medieval world, because the sheer monotony of its daily grind is perfect for drifting off. Imagine the endless cycle of waking up in that damp, flea-infested hut, day after day. The same straw bed, the same creaking joints, the same bucket behind the house. Every morning, you trudge through the same routine. Drag yourself out of bed, avoid the suspicious puddles on the floor, and choke down another bowl of pottage that tastes like it's been simmering since the last king's coronation. The church bell rings, and you're reminded that you owe a tenth of your meager harvest to a priest who might not even know your name. You pull on your one tunic, stiff with dirt and sweat, and head out to the fields, where the Lord's overseer watches you like a hawk, ready to dock your rations for a moment's rest. The sun beats down in summer, turning your skin red and raw in winter. The cold seeps into your bones, and you're never quite sure if your toes will thaw out. The work is relentless, plowing, sowing, weeding, harvesting, all with tools that feel like they were designed to break your spirit as much as the soil. If you're lucky, you might get a sip of weak ale to dull the ache. But it's never enough to make you forget the hunger gnawing at your stomach, or the lice crawling through your hair. And let's talk about the animals, because they're everywhere. The goats in your hut aren't pets, they're survival. But they're also a nuisance, chewing on anything they can reach, including your only blanket. The chickens cluck and scatter droppings across the floor, and you're constantly shooing them away from the pottage pot. The Lord's hounds roam the village, and if you're not careful, they'll snatch your bread before you can. Even the rats are bolder than you, scurrying across your bed at night, nibbling at whatever crumbs you've left behind. You're not just living with these creatures, you're competing with them, and they're winning. Every day is a battle against the elements, the animals, and your own body, which is already starting to feel like it's giving up. Your teeth ache from chewing that rock-hard bread, your back screams from bending over in the fields, and your skin is a patchwork of bites and rashes. You're not living, you're enduring. Now, let's stretch this out further with the monotony of medieval village life. The village itself is small, maybe a dozen huts clustered around a muddy path that turns into a swamp with every rain. The church looms at the center, its stone walls a stark contrast to the crumbling wood and straw of your home. The priest is a constant presence, preaching about sin and salvation while collecting tithes you can't afford. The Lord's manor sits on a hill, a reminder of who really owns your labor, your land, and your life. The other villagers are your neighbors, your coworkers, your rivals. There's Agnes, who gossips about everyone and might report you to the priest for missing mass. There's Wolfston, your uncle, who drinks too much ale and tells the same story about the time he saw a wolf. There's the blacksmith, whose hammer rings out all day, a relentless reminder that someone's always working harder than you. You know everyone's business, and they know yours. There's no hiding in a place this small. If you sneeze, the whole village knows you're sick by noon, and by evening, they're whispering about whether it's the plague. Seasons dictate everything. In spring, you're knee-deep in mud, trying to plant seeds that might not survive the frost. In summer, the heat is oppressive, and the flies are relentless, buzzing around your face as you work. Autumn brings the harvest, the one time of year you might feel a flicker of hope. But it's also when the Lord's men come to collect their share, leaving you with barely enough to survive the winter. And winter is a slow, cruel torture. The cold seeps into everything, your hut, your clothes, your bones. You huddle near the fire, but it's never enough, and you're always one bad storm away from starvation. The cycle repeats year after year, with no end in sight. You don't dream of a better life. You don't have the energy. You just pray to make it through another day without falling into the ditch or catching a fever. Let's pause on the food again, because it's such a relentless part of medieval misery. That pottage you're eating isn't just a meal, it's a lifestyle. Every day, you add whatever scraps you can find to the pot. A handful of barley, a turnip that's more bruised than vegetable, maybe a sprig of herbs if the rats haven't gotten to them. The pot never gets cleaned. It just sits over the fire, accumulating layers of grime and flavor, if you can call it that. Sometimes you find a bit of bone or gristle in there, and it feels like a feast. Other times, you're chewing on something that might be dirt or might be dinner you don't ask. The bread is its own ordeal. It's not just hard, it's a weapon, dense enough to crack a tooth or fend off a stray dog. You soak it in ale to make it edible, but even then, it's a chore. If you're lucky, you might get a bit of cheese, but it's usually moldy, and you eat it anyway because hunger doesn't care about taste. Fruit is a rare treat, and when you get it, it's usually wormy or half-rotten. You've never tasted sugar, and spices are a rumor, something the Lord might sprinkle on his venison while you're choking down your turnip sludge. Every meal is a reminder of your place in the world. At the bottom, scraping by, hopping your stomach doesn't rebel. And then there's the church, always looming over everything. You can't escape it. The bells ring at dawn, noon, and dusk, calling you to prayer whether you're in the fields, the hut, or the latrine. Missing Mass isn't just a sin, it's a social death sentence. Agnes will notice, and by tomorrow, the whole village will be whispering about your godlessness. The priest's sermons are long, droning affairs, filled with warnings about hellfire and the importance of tithing. You give a tenth of your crops, your eggs, your firewood, even if it means your family goes hungry. The church doesn't care about your empty stomach, it cares about your soul, or so it claims. You can't read the Bible, so you rely on the priest to tell you what God wants, and what God wants is usually more wheat. The church calendar dictates your life. Fast days, feast days, holy days that aren't for resting, but for praying harder. You're always one stray thought away from eternal damnation, and the priest is there to remind you of it, his voice echoing through the stone walls as you kneel on the cold floor, trying not to scratch your lice bites. If you're a woman, life is even more relentless. You're expected to marry young, often at 12 or 13, to a man chosen by your father or the Lord. Love isn't part of the equation, it's about land, livestock, or settling a debt. Once married, you're your husband's property, expected to produce heirs, cook, clean, spin wool, and work the fields, all while keeping your head down. Childbirth is a death sentence for many no sterile tools, no pain relief, just a midwife and a prayer. If you survive, you'll face more pregnancies, each one a roll of the dice. If you don't marry, you're a problem, suspected of witchcraft or worse. If you speak up, you're a nag. And if you know too much about herbs, you're a witch. The church offers no refuge. Nuns live under rules so strict they can't speak without permission. You're expected to endure everything, hunger, pain, loss, with a smile, because suffering is your role, and complaining might get you drowned in the river. Violence is woven into the fabric of medieval life. It's not just wars or crusades. It's the everyday threat of a fist, a club, or a noose. Steal a loaf of bread, and you could lose a hand. Gossip too much, and you're strapped into a scold's bridle, a metal cage that clamps your mouth shut. Serious crimes like heresy or witchcraft mean torture or execution, performed in the village square with a crowd cheering and eating snacks. Trial by ordeal is your only defense. Plunge your hand into boiling water to grab a stone, and if it heals cleanly, you're innocent. Sink in a river, innocent, but probably dead. Float, guilty, and you're burned anyway. Domestic violence is expected. Husbands discipline their wives and children, and no one bats an eye. Street fights break out over nothing, a stray glance, a stolen turnip, a pig that wandered into the wrong yard. War is always simmering, whether it's a local lord fighting over a field or a crusade to reclaim some distant holy land. You live with the constant knowledge that life is cheap and justice is a performance, not a promise. Death is your shadow, always lurking. If you're over 40, you're a miracle, a village celebrity known as the Old One. Most don't make it that far. Half of all children die before age 5, taken by disease, hunger, or a cold winter. Childbirth is a leading cause of death for women, with no medical care to ease the pain or stop the bleeding. Men face their own dangers. A farming accident, a cut that turns septic, a drunken brawl that goes too far. The plague can wipe out entire towns overnight, and famine can starve a village in a single season. There's no medicine, no vaccines, just prayers and shallow graves. Funerals are quick, with no embalming or polished coffins, just a hole in the ground and a few muttered words, if you're lucky. Life expectancy hovers around 30, and every day is a gamble against death, many forms. Now let's travel to 18th century Russia, where a young German girl named Sophie Augusta became Catherine the Great. Born in 1729 in a minor Prussian duchy, Sophie was sharp ambitious, and destined for more than her modest upbringing suggested. Her mother, Johanna, was a cold social climber, pushing Sophie forward like a chess piece. Her father, a Prussian officer, was distant but taught her discipline. Sophie read voraciously, spoke multiple languages, and learned to observe a room before speaking, a skill that would become her greatest weapon. At 14, she was summoned to Russia to marry Grand Duke Peter, heir to the throne. Arriving in St. Petersburg in 1744, wearing thin German fabrics and a diplomatic smile, she traded her Lutheran faith for orthodoxy, becoming Ekaterina Alexievna. The Russian court was a labyrinth of gossip, paranoia, and power games, but Catherine learned fast. She charmed nobles, studied Russian history, and memorized Orthodox rituals, determined to belong. Her husband, Peter, was the opposite, immature, obsessed with toy soldiers, and openly contemptuous of Russia, idolizing Prussia instead. Their marriage was a cage, not a crown, and Peter's refusal to consummate it for years left Catherine in limbo. When Empress Elizabeth died in 1762, Peter became Tsar Peter III, but his reign was a disaster. He alienated the church, offended the nobility, insulted the army, and praised Prussia, Russia's enemy. Catherine watched, waited, and planned. With the support of military officers, including her lover Gregory Orlov, she launched a bloodless coup in July 1762, riding through St. Petersburg in full regalia to be proclaimed Empress Catherine II. Peter, caught off guard, surrendered and was taken into custody. Days later, he was dead officially from hemorrhoidal colic, but murder was whispered. At 33, a foreign woman with no legitimate claim, Catherine seized the Russian throne through sheer will, wit, and audacity. Catherine didn't just want to rule, she wanted to transform Russia into a modern empire. Inspired by Enlightenment thinkers like Voltaire and Montesquieu, she corresponded with philosophers, built schools, and promoted smallpox inoculation, even taking the vaccine herself to set an example. Her 1767 legislative commission aimed to rewrite Russia's legal code, with her nakas advocating for equality before the law and decrying torture. Russia's feudal reality limited her reforms. She kept the nobility loyal by reinforcing serfdom, a compromise that haunted her legacy. Militarily, she was relentless. She waged wars against the Ottoman Empire, securing Crimea and Black Sea ports, vital for trade and power. She also orchestrated the partitions of Poland, erasing it from the map and expanding Russia's borders by over 200,000 square miles. New cities, trade routes, and settlers strengthened her empire. Critics called her power-hungry, but she saw it as destiny, transforming Russia from a backward cousin into a European powerhouse. Catherine's personal life was as bold as her politics. She took lovers, often younger, always strategic, rewarding loyalty with titles, estates, and influence. Her relationship with Gregory Potemkin was both romantic and political, possibly a secret marriage. Together, they shaped military campaigns and colonization projects, transforming southern Russia. Gossip swirled, painting her as scandalous, but Catherine separated love from governance, a feat few male rulers managed. Pugachev rebellion of 1773, led by a Cossack claiming to be Peter III, shook her. Promising liberation to serfs and peasants, he sparked the largest uprising in Russian history. Catherine crushed it ruthlessly, displaying Pugachev in an iron cage before his execution. The rebellion forced her to prioritize stability over reform, leaning harder on the nobility and abandoning dreams of freeing the serfs. When she died in 1796, she left a wealthier, larger Russia and a legacy as a visionary who defied expectations. She wasn't flawless, she was effective, ruling with intellect, strategy, and an unapologetic grip on power. In the humid depths of the Chiapas jungle, the Maya city of Palenque hides a mystery: the Red Queen. In 1994, archaeologists led by Fanny Lopez Jimenez uncovered a sealed tomb in Temple XII, untouched for over 1,300 years. Inside was a woman's skeleton, covered in red cinnabar, a sacred, toxic powder symbolizing blood, rebirth, and the divine. She wore a jade mask, necklaces, ear spools, and bone needles, signs of royalty. No name was inscribed, earning her the title Red Queen. Was she Zak Kuk, Palenque's queen regent who ruled until her son, Pakal the Great, came of age? Or Tiziak Buajo, Pakal's wife and mother of kings? Her tomb's proximity to Pakal, in the Temple of the Inscriptions, suggests a connection, but DNA tests are inconclusive. Cinnabar, jaguar pelts, and jade marked her as divine, her burial a ritual for the Maya afterlife, Xibalba. The tomb wasn't just a grave, it was a gateway, aligned east-west to mirror the sun's journey. Jade, the Maya symbol of eternal life, covered her body, while bone needles and obsidian blades hinted at ritual roles, perhaps as a priestess or healer. Maya women were powerful rulers, diplomats, keepers of sacred lineages. The Red Queen, nameless but revered, reminds us their influence wasn't silent. Her sarcophagus, crafted from limestone, sat like an altar in a stark stone chamber, sealed to protect her soul's journey. The cinnabar wasn't just decoration, it was a transformation, preparing her for rebirth in the cosmic cycle. Maya belief held that death was a passage, not an end, and her burial was a carefully choreographed ritual. Jade mask, assembled from mosaic tiles, preserved her identity for the gods, while ceramic vessels held offerings, food, drink, or incense, to sustain her in Xibalba's treacherous layers. The absence of a name wasn't an oversight. It was intentional, her legacy carried by ritual, not words. She wasn't buried to be forgotten, she was meant to ascend. A queen not behind her king, but beside him, a cosmic partner in life and death. Middle Ages weren't the fairy tale world of knights and castles peddled by Hollywood. Life was brutal, filthy, and deeply unfair. If you were born poor, you stayed poor, scraping by in a world that didn't care if you lived or died. Even nobles weren't immune. Castles were cold, drafty, and crawling with fleas, and a bad bowl of soup could send you to the grave. Every task, eating, sleeping, surviving, was a struggle. Food was a gamble, water a risk, medicine a torture. The church ruled your soul, the Lord ruled your body, and death ruled everything else. Yet, through it all, people found moments of joy singing by the fire, telling stories of better days, falling in love despite the odds. Humans are stubborn like that, carving out light in the darkest times. From the muddy streets of medieval Europe to Catherine's glittering courts and the Red Queen's silent tomb, history is a tapestry of struggle and resilience. These stories remind us of human endurance, of lives lived against the odds. As you close your eyes, let the weight of centuries lull you to sleep. Good night, and may your dreams be softer than a medieval mattress.